Hello and welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Show. I am your host, Jay Jones. Black Entrepreneur Blueprint was created specifically to educate and inspire Black entrepreneurs to launch, build, and grow successful businesses. Join us as we help build an economic power base in the Black community by promoting business ownership. If you are currently an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, we invite you to join us every week here at Black Entrepreneur Blueprint.
Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, episode number 334. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and today we have another outstanding and informative show in store for you. Today we're going to be speaking with Mr. Cornell McBride Jr., who is the president of McBride Laboratories. Now, Cornell has an interesting story as he is a second-generation entrepreneur. His father, Cornell McBride Sr., and a partner created a business years ago that had their main product as Stay Soft Fro. So any of you guys of a certain age, you probably remember Stay Soft Fro on all of the major shelves of all your major big box stores. Now, subsequent to Mr. McBride Sr. selling that business, he and Cornell started Design Essentials, which is produced by McBride Laboratories. And on today's show, we're going to talk to Cornell McBride Jr. about legacy building, being a second-generation entrepreneur, and building and scaling a successful business. Now, before we get to today's episode, I just want to share a few things with the BEB family. First and foremost, I want to welcome all first-time listeners or watchers to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Welcome to the BEB family. Please stick around until the end of today's broadcast, and I'm going to share all my social media contact information and all of my resource links, such as the link to my new book, A New Black Wall Street, Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful eCommerce Businesses, and also 2 platforms I've created to help circulate dollars in the Black economy, BeSmartByBlack.com and HireBlackFreelancers.com. Also, I do want to mention the BEB Academy, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Academy, is open and it's been rebranded and rebooted with new courses and new training. So you can go to BEBacademy.com, check it out for 5 days free, and you have access to all the information inside the academy. Now, let's get ready for today's show. All right, we are on the line with Mr. Cornell McBride Jr. from Design Essentials. Brother Cornell, please tell the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family a little bit about your background, who you are, and then we'll get into your amazing entrepreneurial journey.
All right, so as I said, my name is Cornell McBride Jr. I am the president of McBride Research Laboratories, and we make a line of product called Design Essentials that is sold in the retail and the professional space. This company is a second generation business. My father started this company in 1990, and it was his second company. So actually the first company that my father started was M&M Products Company, and M&M made a product called Stay Soft Fro. And so that was really my introduction into the health and beauty space. And I grew up, in M&M Products Company, doing everything from manufacturing to, I did production, I did compounding, I did finance marketing, I did everything. And that was from 8 years old until I graduated from college. So McBride Research Laboratories is just a business number 2, or after selling that company, my father started McBride Research Labs. And so I am the president of that. I've been of McBride Research Labs, and I has been there since it started. And the thing about McBride Research Laboratories I really want to drive home is that it's what we call as a business of businesses. It's a business of business. And the basic premise of McBride Research Laboratories was to really create its own independent distribution network into the marketplace, which means if I sell my product, thinking about selling product, you need distribution.
Right.
We decided, well, why not create our own distribution? And so that's what we did. So we created our distribution into the marketplace, into the professional marketplace, and we offered individuals an opportunity to have their own freedom and their own business. And so basically we have today, when you fast forward in the United States, over 50 individuals across the entire country exclusively selling design essentials in hair salons.
One of the things I want to touch on as we get into the interview is your generation, your second generation. I don't want to go to that quite yet. I wanted to ask you real quick, because I know when we talked before, this sounds like a very extensive business. And so when your dad started out, how did he finance that business? Because if you're talking about manufacturing, production, and all of that, so how did your dad do that?
Oh, yes. All right. So as we kind of get in, and I know I did a kind of a little short introduction of the story,
yeah,
because I could probably spend the entire podcast just telling the story. But when he sold the business, he had to wait 2 years. He had a non-compete. And so he sold it in 1988, and he could not come back into the industry until 1990. During that time, I graduated from Howard University with a degree in marketing in 1987. And when I graduated, I was managing and operating a chain of beauty supply stores that my father owned, along with a package. And so I was operating those two businesses. So at the point in which we decided to start McBride Research Laboratories, we had a choice, right? We had some beauty supply stores that revenue were in the millions. We had a package store that was probably doing $1 million or so, right? And then we had this new company that was basically doing zero.
Okay.
And it was like a decision we had to make. Like, which one at the end of the day, if you reach out 5-10 years down the road, he was like, well, even though this is zero today, the opportunity to grow this one is much greater. So we sold the beauty supply stores, sold the package stores, and focused on McBride Research Laboratories. And that was really the initial funding to take place, along with the fact that he already sold M&M Products Company. So he had in his situation, he had the assets to kind of leverage any type of lending facility that he needed at that time. And we went through the process of getting the SBA loans and things of that nature starting out. And then as the business improved, the cash flow improved, we switched over to more of your conventional type of loan, which is asset-based lending, right, which is really lending off of your receivables and your inventory. But early on, we did go through the process of getting money, of funding for the business starting out. And when you do that, you meet a lot of people who are like these brokers who say, hey, I can get you a deal, I can do the SBA loan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And I remember going through that process, and I just did not care for the whole SBA loan process, right? It was just it was too much. So it just became a mission of, you know what, all right, this is where we are today. But at some point, we want to be on the conventional side, because it seems it's less headache, a little bit easier, and not as cumbersome. And that was in the early 90s. And I don't know what SBA is like today, but then it's fairly cumbersome. And so that's kind of how we started. We were able to finance the business when we sold an existing business. And then we were able to secure funding through SBA in the early days.
Okay. Take me back before, when your dad started the first business. How did he fund that? So the first business that he started, which was turned into M&M, which was what Stay Soft Fro was one of the products. How did he fund that?
Right. So once again, if you go back to that business, at the time he started that business, I was 8 years old. Okay. And if you look at that time, there's a product called Afro Sheen. And I'm going to date myself. I'm going to start mentioning stuff you and your audience may not know what Afro Sheen is.
I know what you're talking about, bro.
but the Afro, for the ones who know, Afro Sheen is what it said. It made the hair shiny. Right. My father had been in a product he went to pharmacy school. Mm-hmm. And in pharmacy school, he met this guy, and they had this product that they were just using personally on their hair. And during this time, remember, the fro was it, right? It was us, being more conscious and more aware and getting away from what they used to call the conch style and putting lye in your hair, right? Yeah. So that was the natural movement. We think there was a natural movement today. No, that was the natural right? And so they just basically had a product, and the foundation of that product was glycerin and water. And if you look at the natural products today, what do you think they have in it?
Glycerin and water, right?
Right. Same stuff, right? And so they had the product, they were using it, and everyone were in froze at the time.
Right.
And they would let friends use it, and they say, hey, they keep coming back and say, I really want this product. Well, the difference is this product was called Stay Soft Fro because it actually made your fro soft, and the process of picking and detangling your fro every day, which is much easier because you were using this product. Right?
Gotcha.
And so that's how they started, and it was just something they were making for themselves.
Wow.
But they realized, wait a minute, we can sell this product, and his initial investment was $500.
Wow.
And he had big barrels, these 55-barrel drums, where they bought the ingredients. You stir it with hand, stir it by hand.
Yeah.
They were stirring it by hand because it's water along with glycerin, a few other things. They made like 5 or 6 ingredients, but the majority of it was water.
Get
right?
out of here. Yeah.
Yeah. So they would mix it up, and then my responsibility, my older sister, my mother, our responsibility every evening was to kind of pump the product into the bottles and put caps, pack them into cases, and have it prepared for him and his partner to go out and sell. So myself, I had an older sister. She's passed away, but at the time growing up, it was our responsibility along with my mother. We were a production facility to prepare the product.
Wow.
And I did that every day after school at 8 years old. And I want to say about a year and a half later, they moved into a building and hired a production facility, hired a production team about a year later.
That's amazing, man. So your dad was working in corporate when he started that business?
No, actually, he was in school. He was in pharmacy school.
He was in school.
He was in pharmacy school. He graduated from pharmacy school. Him and his partner did briefly work as a pharmacist. He may have worked as a pharmacist for about a year.
Gotcha.
Maybe a year, just long enough, right? And so they were kind of moonlighting this business until it could really take off or sustain. And I think about a year afterwards is when he, after working, he quit and started doing it full time.
Man, that's something I want to highlight real quick, man. We had talked previous to the interview about what it takes to start a business. And I know you had some specific ideas. So a lot of the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family, you have some people that are trying to transition from employee to entrepreneur. And what would you recommend in terms of financial tips to make somebody comfortably transfer from employee to entrepreneur? I guess giving themselves a little time to get up and running. What are your thoughts on that, man?
So basically, it's easier when you have your personal expenses for the next 12 months sitting in the bank, right? So the more ideal situation to have that sitting in the bank. Well, he often tells the story of how when they were kind of building the business and transitioning, and when he would come home and he would have cash in his pocket, he would make it very clear that his cash belonged to the business, not to the family, right? It is like, no, we're not going to touch this. And so he had a very clear line of demarcation of the cash going into the business. So even once you have that money sitting aside, the next discipline becomes, all right, do not treat the business like a piggy bank, right? Which is what happens when you start to see the cash coming in and you start to treat it like a piggy, right? And so we try to stress that, for example, with our distributors. So if let's say you become a distributor of our products, you can make, people don't realize you can make 6 figures.
Wow.
You follow me? Making it 6 figures is not the problem. So can you imagine you're a distributor, you're selling design essentials. Let's say you're depositing $5,000 to $10,000 a week in your bank. You never deposit $5,000 to $10,000 a week in your bank, in your bank ever before in your life, right? But what happens, next thing you know, they think they're making that amount of money and they spend it all, not thinking, wait a minute, I need to save some for inventory. I have business expenses.
Exactly.
Right? And so a lot of times over the years, even work with our distributors, all of our distributors are entrepreneurs. They're not our employees. They are distributors, right? And they're part of our family of businesses, but they are independent distributors. And the biggest challenge that we face, and the reason I can speak on it, is we will bring a person on They will be very successful at selling the product, but they always had an issue, or they always struggle with the separating of the money from the business to personal, right? Because can you just imagine $10,000? I mean, you would build a business, you dropping $5,000 to $10,000 a week,
right,
in your bank account, right?
Yeah.
Or you're like depositing of that 5,000, 3 or 4 maybe cash, right? Rest checks, you know. So you now up to $20,000 a week that you have access to.
Right.
But when you worked for someone, all you received was a check. You didn't have access to all the money that was coming into the business, right? So you didn't have access to it. You got a check, you used the check to pay your expenses, and you went on. In these cases, they have access to all the money that's coming into the business, and they have to understand, wait a minute, I have to pay so much for inventory, so much for this, so much for that, so I should not take it all out. Well, that is the same principle regardless, is that when you start a business, you want to leave as much in the business as possible in the first 12 to 24 months. And understand, if you leave it there, it's still your money.
Right.
Follow me?
Right.
Right. You believe it there, it's still your money. And if something comes up that's an emergency, you can give yourself a bonus.
Right.
Right? But the most important thing is to leave it there. Do not touch it, right? And let it build. Once it builds, it creates the cushion. And once you have the cushion created, you have the flexibility to do the things you need to do for the business and for yourself. But the biggest thing is mixing your personal with your business. You have to have a clear line, but a clear wall between the two.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. So that's co-mingling. So a lot of people, they do that. So one of the things I want the light bulb to go off for the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family, I want to highlight this. You talked about saving money, understanding that you have business expenses. So if you're in a partnership, so a lot of times people don't like to go out on their own, and they feel more comfortable going out with somebody else to help mitigate the risk. But if your partner and you aren't equally yoked in terms of how you're going to handle your finances, it's just like a marriage. That can be totally different. There's a perfect example is I was in a partnership, and my partner, he needed the money. If we made $1, he wanted 50 cents. And I'm like, bro, we can't do that. We're trying to build. But so you need to understand that if you get into a partnership, make sure you and your partner or partners are equally yoked, and you understand what we're going to do with the receipts of the business. You know, so that's a major point right there, man, building up that capital, because when you got capital, you got options, and that's all you can ask for, man. I wanted to ask you too, because we don't see a lot of generational wealth in our community, unfortunately. And so you're in the second generation of a couple of businesses. So your dad obviously has tremendous acumen as an entrepreneur, years of experience. What was one of the biggest things that you learned from him, entrepreneurial business wise, when you got into the business, or just in general?
I mean, the biggest thing is when you want to know who is responsible, right? You have to look in the mirror at the end of the day. So it all starts and stops with you. There isn't anyone you can run to. There isn't a single person. As a matter of fact, no matter how much the odds are stacked against you, so what? Right. It doesn't even matter, because it's still your business and you're still responsible. Even when it's unfair, you're still responsible.
That's
you
true.
Follow me? So it doesn't. So you need to have that mindset to understand there aren't any excuses, and at the end of the day, I have to make the impossible possible. That's it. Period. It starts and stops with me. I can't go to anyone else. I can't cry to anyone else. I can't do anything other than resolve the problem and make sure not only resolve the problem, but why don't I make sure I make the right decisions so I do not have the problem?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not in whatever the situation is. But at the end of the day, for any entrepreneur, it starts and stops with you. There aren't any excuses. Not achieving is not acceptable. Failure is not really an option to me.
Right.
Those things don't even, it's not an option. Because if I do not make it, now I got to go work for somebody.
Yeah.
And see, if I have to go, the thought of having to go work for one,
Right.
that wakes me up every single day to make sure I get it.
That's it. I don't blame you, bro. When you get to that
Yeah.
point where you know this, that's not an option. That's going to keep you on your toes, man. I wanted to ask you, man, I wanted to go quickly back to financing the business. And what advice would you give to somebody that doesn't have that 12 months of runway of bills put up, and they're in a situation where they have to make a change and they may be bootstrapping it? Do you have any advice for that person that's listening or watching this right now?
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? Because if that's the case, then now you need to take on partners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you get into financial structures, because it's like, do you have a family friend network, which is another issue, another challenge. But you may not have a family friend network. You follow me?
Right.
You may not be able to, like you said, if you don't have the 12 months to set aside, then the question becomes, do you at least maybe 6 months or 3 months? You need to have some level of cushion to get started. And sometimes I know we feel that I need to take this opportunity now, right? But if you know that you're looking and you want to take an opportunity, they say, what is that? What is it? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So regardless, the finance is so fundamental to the business. You have to decide, well, do I take this opportunity now and I do not have the money, right? Mm-hmm. Or do I at least try to make it 3 months, 4 months, 5 months? But you cannot, or you should not start a business without any level of cushion, because you are going into the business every single day, is what you call robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? Is what you're doing. And you're shuffling, and instead of you being in the business of what your business is designed to do, you're in the business of making your bills meet and dealing with finances. So now you can't focus on strategy, sales, marketing, all those things, because you have all this stuff behind you. So I would just caution anyone that you want to mitigate that as much as possible. And so even though I say ideally you want 12 months, right? What you really want to think about, what is the runway that I can set up? If it's 3 months, because I feel the revenue is the opportunity is so great, I'm going to start some level of cash flowing in 3 months. Then try to get 3 months set aside, but you have to have set aside to where you're not you don't need to take money out of the business right away. Right. You need to really wait as long as you can to take money out of the business, because you want to keep recycling dollars in, and you want to feed it. So as you're anyone in this journey and you want to be in business today, then it's a choice you have to make about the lifestyle you want to have right now. So you start looking at your expenses, the things you're doing and what you're spending money on, and you start making the cuts today. Right? If you start cutting today and saving today, even if you don't have a business that you're ready to go into 12 months from now, you have some money in the bank.
Exactly.
So it's not like it's a bad situation, right?
Yeah.
But it's preparation. You cannot get around preparation.
Yeah. So how about what are your thoughts on people that have a 9 to 5 and they start their business on the side? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you can transition from a 9 to 5 or from a business, but there's a point in which you have to make the jump, right? And it still goes back to what we're discussing. You're going to carry the 9 to 5 only so far. You should be carrying the 9 to 5 that allows you to kind of continue to build your cash reserve and to execute that part of the plan. But there's a point in which, the risk of doing the business full time is greater, right? It's worth it to know it's time for me to stop, because if I put 100% of my time into the business, then the business is going to prepare or grow much faster beyond this point. So I do believe, yes, if you're working and you have this plan and part of this 9 to 5 is to squirrel away as much money as possible so that you are now planning. That's part of the plan. Now you're planning to exit versus waking up one day, this is what I want to do. If you have a business idea, then you need to lay the plan out today and say, I'm going to get there in 12 months or 24 months, No, not I'm starting tomorrow. I don't even know how that, oh, I'm just starting a business tomorrow. No.
Yeah.
If you think about it, if you have a desire, and if you're on this call, then you should be cutting your expenses and saving right now. Even if you don't even know what the business idea is, you should still be cutting your expenses and saving.
That's a great point. I talked about on one of my episodes, one of the businesses I started years ago was I was an ADT security system dealer. And so I was working in corporate America. I had come out and gone back in because the first business didn't work that well. And I was getting ready to come out again for the second time. And I wrote a checklist down of everything that I needed to open shop. So I needed computers, I needed desks, I needed an office space, I needed to have money to hire people. And so over a period of 6 months, my basement looked like an ADT office because every time I got paid, I put some away, then I go and buy what I needed for the office. And so one of my buddies asked me, he was like, damn, man, how'd you get all this stuff? I said, man, it was over a 6-month period that I had planned, and I used some of my money from my salary at my job to fund and finance and get everything in order. So day one, when my lease started, I'm opening the door, clicking the lights on, and I'm hiring people. I had the help wanted ads already run, and I started hiring people day one for that. But it was preparation. So if anybody is out there listening, Brother Cornell made a great point. You just don't wake up and say, yo, I'm starting a business today. It takes preparation to get to that point. I wanted to touch on something you said a little earlier, man, about distribution. And you said that you guys control your distribution. So can you explain, how normal people in your space distribute their product versus how you guys are doing it?
Right. So for us, things a strategy. Is a basic premise. If I make a product, I have to sell it to someone to sell to my customer or my end customer, end user. Right. And the way it happens today when it comes to professional hair care products, because design essentially is sold, in salons, but it's now sold in retail stores. Okay. You would sell your product to what you call these beauty supply stores. And back in the day, before products were available in the store, the only place Black folks went to buy products for their hair was in the beauty supply stores. Right. And so most of the beauty supply stores are owned by Blacks, right? And so that's long before the Asian community came and took over. And so what would happen is you would sell your products to beauty supply stores, and the beauty supply stores had a connection to all the salons in the area. And so what they would do is they would go out and sell your products to the salons, or they would have the product in the store. Well, by the time we came along in 1990, that model was getting old, and the professionals were either buying their products at the beauty supply, walking in, and you had a few professional beauty suppliers, which means they had a sales team. Right. And then you had some of our competitors who were selling direct to salon.
Gotcha.
So when we assessed the marketplace, we said, no. What we want to do is sell direct to the salons. But the difference is our competitors, they had a sales team that worked for them. So they were paying the people a commission. What we did was like, no, we're going to give you an opportunity to have your own business, and all the money you collect come to you, and you just pay us the wholesale price, right? What you're going to do is you're going to earn 40% off of everything you sell. You're going to manage your cash. You're going to manage your inventory. You're going to manage the market. And by the way, you're going to be our exclusive distributor in the market, and we're not going to let anyone else sell the product in the marketplace. So what happened now, you have a person wake up every day like, well, everything I capture, I eat, it is mine. Right. That's it. So the more I put into it, the more I get out of it. So you can have guys who they started out, you may start off running around at 10 o'clock. These guys coming back 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night from inside those salons. And every time they walked in that salon, they were getting a check, or they were getting cash, or getting paid at the time they walked in the salon, and they deposit the money into their bank account. And so at that point, we were creating our own distribution network direct to the salon. And we just went market by market by market. Wow. To we have every market covered, major market covered with at least one distributor in each market.
Oh man. So let me ask you this. Is that more profitable to you than doing the other, what your competitors are doing?
Yeah, so there are a lot more benefits. for example, if I introduce a product, and it doesn't matter, as soon as I introduce my professional product, it's going to be in the market tomorrow.
Right.
Whereas my competitor had to go do some work to convince someone to sell it, and it can convince someone to do something else. Now, since we created that model, there are others out there like us with a very similar model.
Right.
So there are others, like Dudley's, they had a model, but their model was they had sales rep. Eventually, Dudley switched theirs over to distributors, and then we have a few other competitors that have distributors. So now you see it more in the marketplace than we started in 1990. We were the first ones to have distributors, surfacing direct distributors to the market. No one else had it at that time.
Wow. Now that makes sense. So what was the impetus to actually do that? Did you feel that you would get a more vested person to be able to push your products because they're making compensation off of it based on their efforts? Or what was your thought process behind that?
Yeah, basically it was, if you think about barriers to entry, is normally, if you think about traditional market, what are your barriers to entry? Well, sometimes it's distribution or access to the market. Well, either you're going to use the normal access to the market, or you're going to create your own, right? And so we decided we'll just create our own, and then we would provide the right incentives to the individuals to become self-sustained in each market. And so now when it leaves my door and it goes to their door, now we have a motivated individual in the market. And it's almost as if within that market, within that territory, they had their own product line. So we knew we were going to empower or create a bunch of entrepreneurs all over the country, in the process, as we were building this distribution model into the marketplace. And then we made them responsible for all of the sales, education, and marketing in the market. So not only did they sell the product, they were responsible for putting together all the educational training that was required with the professional community. So there are several things that you have to do in order to kind of build and maintain that market. And we felt that was the best strategy for us because it's much more sustainable. It's ours. They were exclusive, which means our distributors they do not carry other brands. They built this off carrying only design essentials, right? And it was totally unheard of in the marketplace where you have to breathe, eat, and live this brand, right? If you can't breathe, eat, and live this brand, then you're going to have a divided commitment. You're not going to be totally commitment. If you're doing this brand over here and then you're doing this brand over here, you're going to become what we call order taker versus, no, I have to sell this brand, right? I have to convince you to buy this brand because if I do not, I don't have anything else. So we want to make sure everyone along the way in the vertical was motivated, and we want to make sure that strategically we own the pipeline to the market, right? Which is something no one built the way we built it, and we still have it to this day. And most people do not realize that we have this pipeline to the market.
That's a great way, obviously, to keep your product fresh. And I had a question though about vetting your distributors. How intense is that process? Because you don't have any direct quote unquote control because they're independent contractors. So how do you vet them?
If you go back to the early days, they had to have some sales skills and a pulse.
Right.
It was someone looking for opportunity. So we have 50 distributors, but we may have turned over another 150.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm gonna give you a very simple mathematical calculation that no one understands. Okay. If I go into a market and I find the individual and I give him an opportunity, I may give him. At that time we may give you $5,000 to $7,000 worth of product on credit. That means we'll trust you. Right. Right. There's a chance that person may take the money, sell stuff, and never pay you. Right. There's a downside risk that that's why most people wouldn't do it. Right. Because they're like, I'm not gonna give this $5,000 and they lose my $5,000. Right. But they miss one important thing. Okay. If I give you $5,000, guess what you have to do to get the money? You have to sell it. You got to sell it, yeah. And if you never pay me again, guess what you just created for me? demand. Simple as that.
There you go.
So what it costs me to build demand, build demand under the worst case scenario, which means that person never paid me, was $5,000.
Gotcha.
If the person did pay me, it was a bonus. Normally when they did not pay me, I would put someone else in and that person would benefit. But the one thing that always happened, to get the money, you had to sell the product. Period. Simple as that. And once they sold the product, they created the demand. So I wasn't in a losing situation. Most people would not assess it that way. They would think they're losing $5,000. But what about when you go spend money on a magazine and advertising and all that kind of stuff? My $5,000 was more effective than yours. And you don't even realize.
To the market. Yeah.
It's going straight to the market and right into the hands of the customer.
Yeah.
That's better than putting the ad up and running the TV. No. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Man, I wanted to ask you, with that model, right? So, price integrity. So do your distributors have the ability to discount prices to the actual salons or professionals? And if so, I assume they take it, right?
We have a standard price list that we recommend. And so if a stylist calls us, we're always going to give them the standard price list. We let everyone across the country know. If they pick up the phone and call us, this is the standard price. We do run national promotions, on a monthly basis into the marketplace. And so we recommend that everyone adhere to the price. In some markets, depending on where you are, some may, because of market dynamics, Northeast, West Coast, or whatever, they may have added a little bit more because logistically it was a challenge. But for the most part, one, we have to maintain price integrity. Two, you have to make sure you don't go into someone else's territory, right? Because it brings it all down, because now you create this competitive landscape. And we encourage everyone, honor the rules and the guidelines. And when you do not, and we catch you, termination is swift, is quick, is instant. Simple as that.
That's what's up. All right.
And so that's what we do. And everyone tends to abide by the rules. And we come together. So at one point we used to come together twice a year, national meeting. One was a national meeting and one was a national retreat. So when you're coming together and you're bonding with your fellow distributors from all over the country, it makes it a little bit more difficult for you to undermine their business.
Right. Now that makes sense. I hope y'all are catching this game right here, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family. So let me ask you this, man. I know you guys sell on Amazon and online. How have your distributors reacted to that? And are they adverse to that? Or do you sell different products online than you do to the professional community?
So we sell, so this story is a little complex. Okay. But the best way to describe it is that we originally did have a professional collection, then we created what you call a retail collection. So the retail collection is what we sell into your Targets and your retail stores. Since that point, a few years ago, there's a retail version of the professional collection that we made available, but the professional products are only available through the distributors.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that part is still with the distributors, but the products, the retail consumable products for consumers, you can buy them at select retail locations or Amazon, or you could buy it on our website.
Are they bottled or packaged differently? Or is it the same exact?
No, same.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So my next question I want to talk to you about is, you had talked about basically vertical integration. And
correct.
Offline, when we talked before, you had mentioned that you guys have your own manufacturing now, as opposed to using outside manufacturers. So I'm big on vertical integration. I talk a lot about it on the podcast, but talk to me or speak to the BEB family about why that was so important for you guys to start doing your own manufacturing.
Sure. So when we look back at how we started a business, started in 1990, we didn't do manufacturing. We had co-packers or contract fillers or whatever you want to describe, because manufacturing is a division or a department by itself, And based on our experience before with the previous business, we were completely vertically integrated, right? So we had and we started out that way. And so the thought process at the time was, let's do a different business model. Let's not worry about manufacturing right now. Let's focus on marketing and sales. So when you ask who we were at the time, we were a marketing sales company, and we felt we could always outsource the manufacturing side of the business. That was 1990. Well, as time progressed along and you move forward, as you're still growing, then you have to kind of consider, well, is there opportunity, or there's margin improvement, or is there a level of flexibility I now will gain if I am contract or doing my own manufacturing? And so we made that determination that, one, by integrating our manufacturing, that there was opportunity to pick up a significant amount of gross profit margin. There's an opportunity for us to kind of control our costs. And then also it gave us the ability to, it gave us greater flexibility when it came to product innovation and launching new products. Because we knew strategically several years ago that we were building, our strategy was building towards an e-commerce type of business. And we felt with the e-commerce type of business, we need to have the ability to kind of manufacture a greater range of product without always having to meet certain minimums, right? So we think, okay, that's going to be a benefit of the business. So now I can do a small run and then grow into the business, or I could do a larger run starting out. So we had, for some very strategic reasons, to integrate our manufacturing. It definitely was around gross profit improvement, along with the ability to kind of control that part of the supply chain and to minimize our cost. And so the benefit so far is that because it's us, as raw materials are increasing, we do not pass the cost along to McBride Research Labs the same way one of my other contract manufacturers would have passed the cost along. So then McBride Research Laboratories has had the benefit of maintaining a little bit stronger profit margins, and then we absorb the cost on the manufacturing side.
When you do a cost benefit analysis in that type of situation, is there a certain percent of revenues or profitability that you look for to take on that additional portion of the vertical?
Yeah, so in this case, when we spoke to our manufacturer, right, I had done an analysis and had determined that our manufacturer was roughly making a 50% gross profit off our business.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I went back to negotiate with him and say, hey, why don't we do cost plus? And I was trying to negotiate around that 25, 30%. Can you imagine you doing business with someone all these years and they're trying to cut your margins by 20 to 25%? You don't want to hear it, right?
Right.
But what I said to them, I said, look, you're making so much money on me that I can actually start this manufacturing. You're making so much money, I can make mistakes and errors and still be profitable, is what I said to them. I read the analysis said they're making so much that I could afford the mistakes with the level of profitability, right? That means the mistakes in learning how to do manufacturing, trust me, they are mistakes, okay? So before moving, right, I presented that we were not trying to do it. We were focused on the margin.
Right.
We were looking at the margin of the business and saying, no, something is not right here, because their price increases over the years created an upward pressure on us into the marketplace, forcing us to continue to charge higher prices. Right. So we realized, no, we have to do something different, because you're going to push us to the point to where we cannot pass it along to the customer. Right. So I had the conversation with them. They didn't want to hear what I had to say. They said no. And so that's what led to it. And so when we started the manufacturing, it was right. My margins right now today are 50%, right? Which is what we had estimated. So, which means we've been doing this. We started in 2017. The prices they have been charging us is the prices that we've passed along to MRL. So we haven't really changed those prices.
Gotcha.
We've absorbed some, a little bit we had to pass on, the ones we had.
Right. So
we've been charging since then. We made the same margin, and then our profitability, our EBITDA on our business is almost 15%. So I have a 15% EBITDA after all expenses.
Wow.
On my manufacturing. Right?
Yeah. See, that's, yeah,
They were
that
making
makes
that
a lot
money.
of sense. So how did they
Mhm.
react once you took all of that away from and started doing
Oh, they
it?
were not kind. No, they were not necessarily kind, but I was honest. I let them know. I
Right,
think they were surprised. So at the time we did it, I think it caught them by surprise.
right.
But we let them know it wasn't necessarily one of the easiest transitions, and they still do some things for us.
Oh, okay.
So we didn't bring it all in. We have
Got
more, some more to bring in, but it was not an easy transition because the person was losing a certain amount of business, and so
definitely.
they did not care for that. And I get it, I understand. But at the same token, when I came to you, you didn't
Right,
understand what I was trying to tell you, that where you were, let's create a pricing structure that makes sense for you and I, you
right,
know, because I cannot sustain. If you want me to be a good customer, then you have to make sure that I'm still viable and that I can sustain in the marketplace. If
right,
not, then all you're doing is you're making so much money, you're willing to choke me off,
right.
right?
Yep.
You're not trying to negotiate. So I let them make their money. It wasn't any need to negotiate, and we understood. So what we decided to do was to start our own manufacturing. And it was painful the first year or two, but now we're in 2020. We've hit our stride. We're profitable. We're cash flow positive. And now we have so much flexibility, and we have people coming to us asking us to contract manufacture. So if we wanted to, we actually can do. We turn down contracts. So we just have not accepted any because we're focusing on just making sure we're utilizing our capacity for our current business.
Makes a lot of sense, man. I want to hit on something that we talked about off of the air. So your manufacturing facility is set up as a separate entity, correct?
Yes, it is.
All right. I want you to explain to the BEB family why you set it up that way.
Yeah, I mean, basically, they're two different businesses. So we have McBride Research Laboratories. The manufacturing entity is called Advanced American Labs. So they're two different businesses. It's
Gotcha.
just that Advanced American Labs only has one customer at this time, and that's McBride Research Labs. But other than that, when you look at corporate structure, when you look at corporate ownership, all of that is totally, totally separate. And we want to set it up that way because we felt it would give us a greater flexibility out into the future if we want to become a contract filler. And then two, it's just how we want to structure, our books. We want to keep McBride Research Labs as McBride Research Labs, the manufacturing entity, and then not cross-pollinate the liability. So the liability resides in both entities alone versus allowing it to cross-pollinate.
Cool. Nah, that makes a lot of sense. So I really like I said, about controlling that vertical. Has it helped you on your shipping and product distribution in terms of your shipping? Has it helped you with that type of cost also?
Oh, it did. So for example, when we were bringing our stuff out of Chicago, we would bring down what you call a truckload a couple of times a week on the spot market, roughly $1,500, right? So let's say we're bringing it down to 2 to 3 truckloads a week. Let's say 2, that's $6,000 a week times 4 weeks, that's $24,000 a year.
Right.
Once you started manufacturing, if you say you're now bringing down 1 truckload or a truckload every other week, as you can see, that alone was savings because now I'm not sending all these components up to Chicago to be filled and then to come back down here to Atlanta. I'm 2 miles from my facility. I make everything that comes here, I make it and then send it over to the facility, like a couple of miles away, if that.
Cool.
So it saved, it definitely was a serious saving on freight cost because now you're not moving as much product across the highway as we were before.
Right.
And we are more involved in the purchase of raw materials now. Before we're buying components, now it's raw materials. And so if we can effectively purchase all those things. And because of that, we can negotiate cost savings. And so in the cost savings we're negotiating now, it comes to AAL as a contract filler. Whereas before that contract filler, whatever the cost savings they were negotiating went to them, rightfully so, it should. So those are some of the benefits. And that's why the margins and the EBITDA is so strong, because you have that flexibility. to extract that cost out and to have it to reside in your business.
Makes a lot of sense, man. I got a couple more questions for you. We're going to hit the hour mark in a second, but in about 10 minutes. But I wanted to find out, man, you've been blessed to have a mentor who's also your father in the business. And tell me about a time that you can remember, because I know all business isn't, gravy, right? I know there's sometimes things happen. Tell us about a time that a tough time in the business or a situation in the business that was very critical. What did you learn from it, and how did you overcome it, if you overcame it at all?
I mean, yeah. I mean, not a tough time. Plenty of tough times, right? And especially with in a family business, there are going to be decisions that I want to make as a young Turk. He's going to kind of tell me no because of all of his experience, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things early on I had to learn was that, well, he's in charge, because he's not going to always allow me to kind of make the decisions. I had to earn my right? So from 1990 to 2020, it was a process of learning how to earn that right and earn that respect. Because there were times, let's say if we were, and these are not major issues, but I'm trying to remember a time around, we were doing some territory divisions, right? And, I prematurely made a decision about a territory division is the best way to describe it, whereas he had another thought process. You follow me? So then I had to kind of walk it back, and I don't want to walk back to someone about a territory and he's sitting there like, no, you got to go walk that back. What?
Right.
You follow me?
Yeah.
So, but what you learn is just how, when you have a manager or a family man, is not to make certain assumptions and how to kind of manage up, right? And so you have to, any circumstance, you have to look back and learn and say, what could I have done differently? And so I remember that specifically as an example. Another example, we tried to go into the tool business. Oh my gosh, tools and irons and all that stuff.
Really?
So before the first time we tried to design our own tool, right? We ended up with a design patent for it. Wow. That cost like an arm and a leg. That must have been a $500,000 fiasco.
Wow.
So the most memorable lessons are the most expensive ones.
Most definitely.
You follow? Yeah.
Painful.
And the thing about it, I felt that we had a very good concept and all, but there's a difference between a good concept and an idea and the ability to execute and deliver to market. Those are two different things, right? And so that did not go over as well. And I had to learn from that because of the amount of money that it cost to the organization, you know? So, I could just kind of and just peel off things that were just lessons to learn, where it cost. And if I think back about other decisions that were made early on in the business, it's just, you make decisions based on, sometimes it's experience and maturity. And early on, I wasn't as experienced and mature as I am today, right? And then early on, I probably had a higher level for risk than what I have today. So you learn your risk tolerance change. You learn how to control and measure risk, and then you learn when and how to take chances. So for me, there are investment ideas that haven't always worked out well, and that's not the only time they haven't worked out. And there are going to be more that's not going to work, right? So I always like to say, I'm going to make good and bad decisions. I just didn't need to make more good decisions than bad decisions. Or I need to have the good outperform the bad decisions.
Most definitely.
But I am definitely going to make some more bad decisions, along the way. That is not it. You just have to kind of recoup from them. And then depending on the type of decision, some are more painful than others. And then, of course, as my father and as a mentor, there are times he had the patience for it, and the times and he did not have the patience for it.
There you go. Man, I got two quick ones for you, man. You mentioned something about your family had owned some beauty supply stores. Why do you
Yes.
why do you think that the Koreans have taken over that industry and we don't have a foothold in it? What's your thoughts on that, brother?
Man, I'm looking at your clock. It says 5 minutes. You asked me to answer something in 5
Man,
minutes.
I got time. I just didn't want to hold you. I'm good.
All right. So basically, and this is so this is how the story goes, right?
Okay.
So during this time, my father had Stay Soft Road M&M. You had Stay Soft Road. You had the Bronners. You had the Soft Sheen family, the Luster families. And this is when the curl was hot. Right. Everything was doing well. Everything was growing, right? And at this time, the early 80s, Sally's Beauty Supply Store, maybe they had like 2,500 locations. At the time, I'm not sure if they had 100 locations, right? So there really wasn't a national chain of beauty supply stores. There wasn't a national, there wasn't, the Asians did not own all the beauty supply stores. A lot of the beauty supply stores are owned by Blacks. And so my father had the idea to say, hey, why don't we just own the beauty supply stores?
Another part of the vertical, right?
Right. And so everyone was making so much money at the time to where they didn't want to do it. Right. And so he decided, okay, well, then he goes to his partner and say, hey, why don't we just buy this chain of beauty supply stores and we start to kind of own the vertical, because, you know, we need to own these beauty supply stores out into the future. Right. And his partner said no, right? His partner didn't want to do it. So he decided to go into the business itself. So he started out, he had 10 beauty supply stores. So by the time he started along the journey and doing it, he had 10 beauty supply stores. He ended up cutting it down to 5. And at this time, that's when a lot of Asian stores were coming into the marketplace. Okay. So he was running M&M. He had a team running the beauty supply store. And the team, I think, running the beauty supply store at the time wasn't as strong as it could have been. You follow me? Right. And then he had M&M. So he had both of these things in place, you know, at one time. And so he never got a chance to make that vision of the beauty supply store materialize into a national chain, right? But he was there because Sally's has 2,300 locations today. Dang. Right? I'm telling you, at this time when he was having these conversations, I don't even know if Sally's had 100 locations. Wow. Right? So it was in the early 80s when the opportunity to build a chain of beauty supply stores existed. Right. And the ability to collaborate amongst the owners, they could not do it. They couldn't collaborate and see this bigger picture. So at the end of the day, he tried it, but by this time he was selling M&M. Right. And market dynamics had changed. So by 1988, when we sold M&M and market dynamics had changed, when most of the stores at this time were owned by Asian, it's like, well, wait a minute, the best thing to do now is to kind of exit this and focus on this brand here because it's a greater opportunity.
Gotcha. Now that makes a lot of sense, man. It's funny. I had gone into, my wife has said, oh, let me stop and go to this, beauty store. And so I go in with her. Normally I don't go in. And it was a sister at the counter, very knowledgeable. And I was like, oh man, I said, sis, I said, do you own the store? And she was like, oh, no, Mrs. Kim was somebody owns the store, but she's real nice to me. I'm like, yeah, they need to be because we the ones buying all the daggone product. But but with, I just see that and I'm like, man, and like I said, I know the dynamics are different now, but I'm like, man, this is crazy. So you guys, do you sell any of your product through the beauty supply stores? Is all straight? Oh, you do? You still do?
Yeah. I mean, okay. When you look at the marketplace, we look at Target and these retailers is very sexy and all that, right? But they probably make up 40% of the market, right? If you want to know where hair care products are sold, they're sold in beauty supply stores. Gotcha. Right. Okay. So you could walk, especially amongst our community, you could walk inside those stores all day long and be happy to be on a retail shelf. That's great. Right. I'm just trying to tell you that doesn't represent, that's a small part. That's not the largest segment of the market. So as an entrepreneur and a business person, a lot of times we get we get into what's sexy, you know, what looks sexy for our brand and what
Right.
looks sexy for your brand having this retail presence or shelf space.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great. But what's sexy for your brand is the cash that's coming in, the profit that's flowing to your bottom line.
Well,
you know, that's what's, to me, that's what's sexy. And so sometimes you could chase the wrong thing.
Gotcha.
So yes, we sell the beauty supply stores, and we look at markets holistically. You know, what is the total size of the market, and where are all of the opportunities to sell product where a person needs some type of maintenance or some type of regimen for their hair.
Makes sense. I wanted to ask real quick. So I was watching a documentary. This was a couple years ago, and it was a Los Angeles company that was manufacturing flat irons or straight irons, and Kiara, something like, starts with a K. I can't remember what is it?
Missouri.
Yeah.
Missouri.
Yeah, and they were just talking about how a lot of the Asian store owners now weren't carrying their products, and they were selling knockoffs from China and telling the customers, hey, that Kazuri is no good anymore. This is what you need to buy. Have you come across any of those type of stores trying to knock off your type of products? Okay. All right. Gotcha.
No, not really. I mean, Kroger does it. I mean, if you think about it, you go in any store, you see a generic brand.
Right.
Sally does it. You follow me? So if you are a retail store and you see a particular brand, and if you're in the business of making products as well as a retail owner, then you're going to try to knock off the more common products and make something comparable. So most retail stores do it, and it's done more in the retail stores than it's in the beauty supply stores.
Okay.
You know? But that's kind of, I think a lot of times when it comes to brand and brand ownership, we've never gotten bogged down into that type of situation, right? You know, as long as you're not copying the exact brand, I'm good. But if you want to try to knock me off, I can't waste my time, or there's not much I can do with it. Our biggest challenge over the years has always been diversion, right? And then even that, we would try to manage the diversion. The best thing for us to do has always been to just stay focused on your brand, because at the end of the day, your brand is your brand. They buy design essentials, they will design essentials going to deliver. So unless it says design essentials look like design essentials, it's not the same. So if you focus on your brand integrity, your brand strength, your brand quality, and you make sure your brand deliver what it's supposed to do, no one can knock you off.
Man, two last questions, I promise this time.
That's fine.
All right, we good. All right. That makes a whole lot of sense. For somebody like myself that has several product brands, obviously not as entrenched and been around as long as you, that makes a whole lot of sense. And I was just talking to one of my friends today. One of my brands that I'm getting ready to launch is a premium brand. It's a higher end product. Where do your products fall on that scale, or do you have higher end products? I know your professional products are probably the highest end, but do you have products that touch all of the different price ranges?
No, our products is premium to luxury. It depends, especially on the professional side. So we define premium at 10 to 15.
Okay.
Value is, for us, is maybe from 5 to 10, and economy is around 5. So somewhere there's about, right? And then over 15 tends to, for us, more luxury. So our products are priced at premium to luxury. So everything we sell is always, unless the sizes are smaller, it's normally $10 or higher to the consumer.
Okay. And I want you to talk to me real quick, man, about, you had mentioned Target and stores like that. Give me some of the because everybody always wants their product to be, I want to be in Target, I want to be in Walmart. Give me some of the pros and cons of that type of level of exposure for your brand, or just brands.
There's risk and reward with it. And so when you go into retail, you don't want to, ideally what happens, they give you some trial doors. If you do very well there, then the very next year they expand the doors, and the year after that expand. And depending on how your brand is doing, you can go out to what they call full distribution. But if you are within a demographic, you have to know when you get to full distribution, then your brand is not going to turn as fast, right? And then what happens, the retailers have a very basic concept. They're going to stay whole, meaning that if it doesn't sell, they're going to sell it back to you. But at the end of the day, they're going to sell it back to you and what they're supposed to get to a certain extent, or they expect some level of compensation for that, right? So that's part of the risk. So now it's your responsibility to make sure you turn or sell the brand. So I've had experiences both ways. We sold to, let's say, we sold into CVS at full distribution 1 year, and we sold at full distribution. We thought the brand was doing well at full distribution. We felt that they could have done more. So the product went in January at full distribution. The product came out by November, December, because they said we didn't meet what they call the hurdle rates, right? And so that's part of that relationship in retail, where you have to understand your hurdle rates. We had a meeting with them, let's say like June or July of that year, to discuss it, because we had done our analysis. And so we felt our hurdle rates, you know, on a couple of items were there and one or two were not. But they said, hey, going into next year, what we're going to do is let's just cut your door count down, you know, from 7,000. Let's cut it in half. And then you should be okay, because then that changes your hurdle rate, right? So we was like, okay, fine, we agree. Let's do that, because we were not able to run and pull all the levers we wanted with them. Come November, December came along, they made another decision, and they decided they were not going to do that. And so let's say, what was the cost to me? $1 million.
Wow.
And taking product back, right? Now, when I sold in, I collected $1.5 million. So I want everyone to understand, when you sell it in that distribution in January, you collected $1.5 million. Right. Roll around to November, December, when they said, nah, this didn't work out, and they send it back. And it's $1 million. Now, you didn't save that $1.5 million and set it aside. With the expectation December they're going to come back, right? But we were financially able to withstand. I felt that was a unique situation, because I personally felt things that transpired in that CVS relationship, they carry some of the burden. So it wasn't purely a decision on metrics. It was a strategic decision, and I was not in the room, right? To you know, because when you're at that level, you have to understand the stakes, right? I was not in what you call the ethnic section of the store. I was in the general section of the store, and I had real estate. And you can't play this game with them and step off and take real estate, because each one of those little facings is valid, right? And so when the people who were in that section of the store, that section of the shelf set, when they were making a decision about who became expendable, I wasn't in the room. I became expendable, right? But when I did my metrics, right, and this what they can't dispute, is that they have a metric called sales per store per distribution. My sales per store per distribution was higher in that section compared to where I am in the ethnic section, right? I had 4 SKUs doing over $1 million something, and that wasn't enough. Roll me all the way back to the ethnic section, I'm not performing at the same rate, right? So I'm just saying all to say that all of this stuff in retail is not merit-based. It's a merit, it's relationship, you follow me, which means you when you go in there, they need to at least give you the 12 or 24 month leadway, and then you need to be able to make investments. We were trying to make the investment, they wouldn't let us make the investment. We didn't get the 12 leeway, you follow me? But it was a lesson, and we learned, but most businesses wouldn't have sustained that $1 million hit.
Now, are you able to resell the product after they send it back to you? Or do you have to destroy?
Some cases, yeah, because some is destroyed and some is so it's a combination of both. Some you took back, and some is destroyed. Right. Right. So it is a combination of both.
Cool.
Yeah, but you end up taking a financial hit if you're not careful.
Now that you had that discipline, man, like you were talking about at the opening of the show in terms of that, 1.5 million coming in. What type of terms are you normally on with these stores? 90, 60, 30?
Yeah, so they can range from 30 to 60 days. And then that's a good question, because once you go out there with those terms, that means you now have to have the cash, right? So if it's a $200,000 PO, and you have to pay for your raw materials, and you have to wait, then you need to have the cash to pay for your raw materials and finance that receivable internally until that money comes in. So that still goes back to earlier in the conversation about how you have your amount of cash you have available, how you have your books set up and designed to manage your receivables, the growth in receivables, or the growth in inventory. What is your liquidity position when you take on a new account, when you take on a new customer? So those are all the things that you do today, right? So if I sell something to a customer every single year, I don't assume I'm never going to get anything back. So I'm going to allocate for returns.
Gotcha.
So automatically there's a line item on our financial statement that a certain percent is going to come back to returns. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Right.
That's more to the bottom line. But if it does, you allocate for it.
Right.
There's a reserve for bad debt. So in the financial statement, you automatically set so much aside for bad debt, or allocate for bad debt. You set aside a percentage for returns and damages. And so it doesn't matter when the end of the year comes, because you've already you planned for it. You've already set aside. Already set aside for it. So it's not as disruptive to your business when it happens.
That's a great point. I remember my flat iron. That was the first product that I was really banging it out with on Amazon. And we talked about Amazon prior when we were talking. But I'm over there killing them, man. Q4 flying out the door, And what I didn't realize in January was, because obviously people are buying gifts. So if people don't like that flat iron gift, what do? Oh, I want to return it to Amazon. And I never took into account the return. So when you're selling 1,000 units a month, for October, November, December, and then you see, man, you got 250 returns in the month of January, like, that's cutting into my money. But because I didn't know what I was doing, I knew what I was doing, but I didn't anticipate that. I'm like, man, but then I learned. I was like, okay, you got to know that you're going to get returns. That's a part of the game. So
when it comes to tools, see that's a modeling, right? Like you said. So with tools, the defective rate really was under 2. So we track, what's the defective rate? What's the real defective rate? What's the real return rate?
Right.
So the defective rate, if you're under 5%, we felt that we were under 5%, we were good. But you're going to get a higher rate, which is return rate, which will run around 10 to 15%, because people will drop them and they expect you to be responsible.
Exactly.
They'll drop it and break it, right? So a lot of the stuff you was getting back wasn't the true defective. It was the fact of use. It was use and abuse. So once you know that tolerance, then a cost factor built in your model becomes a 10 to 15% return defective rate. So now I'm going to price that into every product that I sell, and then I'm going to allocate that to the side. Now, when it happens, it's no big deal, because I have 10 to 15% allocated for defective and return, and I've already priced it in anyway. We're going.
Yep. See, that's something I had to learn, man, because I was telling you, I got a 1-star review on one of the flat iron brands because the lady dropped it and the plate broke. And it had nothing to do with the functionality, but she was like, oh, I dropped my flat iron, the plate broke, I'm giving it a 1-star review. I'm like, come on. Oh, I had a lifetime, and I gave them a lifetime return policy, because most people, a lot of times they're not even going to go through to do all of that. But I said, my hook was, you buy this $149 flat iron, it's the last one you're going to buy. Anything that happens to it in normal use, just, email us, send us the flat iron back, and you get a new one. And instead of doing that, 1-star review. And like I said, once you get those bad review like that, and it's weighted, verified purchase and all that, it can really bring your star rating down, which obviously can affect your sales. And But yeah, man, that's something I had to learn the hard way, man, because I'm making all this money October, November, December. I'm like, oh man, this is great. January comes in and I get this, oh man, I was supposed to get this much and they took $12,000 out of this pay. Where did that come from? Oh, the next pay, it was another 20,000 coming out. I'm like, I said, oh my God. Yeah, it was crazy, man. But you live and learn. And I always tell people, I said, those mistakes, like you said, you remember those and you just don't want to make those same mistakes again.
No, you do not.
Yeah, bro. I got, before we get this last question, how can people support you and support your products, man? Where can they buy your products, man?
Okay, great. Well, our brand is called Design Essentials, and Design Essentials is sold in all major chains. Hair salons like Regis, JCPenney, major chains. They sold in major retailers. It targets your Walmarts, your Walgreens, CVS. You can also find the product in most independent salons, most independent beauty supply stores as well. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you can order it on Amazon.com as well as DesignEssentials.com. So preferably DesignEssentials.com. And we are distributed, if you have an international market, we are distributed in the in the European. We're in France, UK, Netherlands, and then we also are distributed in several countries in Africa as well, and we're distributed throughout the Caribbean. So not only we're domestic, but we're out into the international markets as well. And then we offer solutions for all hair types and texture. And it's very simple for us. We make straight hair curly and curly hair straight and everything in between. We do it all.
That's what's up, man. Look, what can you do for me, man? I don't know. What you got? Anything to help me out? You ain't come up.
I get that question. I'm trying to. You see, that's why I have this full head, because I know it's slowly disappearing. Right.
Oh man, that's crazy, but yeah. So we worldwide, man. We got it's amazing to me. Actually, this podcast is downloaded over 120 countries, man. Which places I never thought people would be listening to it, so that's right. A blessing into and of itself, man. Last question I got for you, Brother Cornell. If you had an opportunity to have a conversation with one person, living or dead, who would it be and why?
We all know who that is.
Who's that?
We all know.
I got an idea.
I want to have a conversation with Barack Obama.
Okay. That's what's up.
I
thought you was going to say Jesus, man.
No, I didn't get a religious answer. I'm sorry. No. I want to talk to Barack.
That's what's up.
I want to talk to him, and I want to, kind of really understand, as a leader, because he's led the free world. I just have this company I'm leading, but as a leader, you led the free world. And you had to kind of deal with so many different entities, perspectives. You had to deal with so many different constituencies, and just truly understanding how do you manage that, and how did you manage that and find common ground. So it'd be very interesting to understand how he did it and how he was able to kind of maintain in such an adversarial environment.
Exactly.
So that's what I want to speak.
All right, that's what's up, man. Brother, I appreciate your time, man. The wisdom and the jewels that you drop, man. So this is business, like it's not 101. This is a higher level business conversation, man. And we need those type of conversations, man. So we appreciate you, Brother Cornell, for joining the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family. Anytime you got anything rocking, man, let us know. Matter of fact, that was an amazing interview with Mr. Cornell McBride Jr. from McBride Research Labs. Now, before I give you some takeaways, I just want to share a few things with the BEB family. I'm going to give you my social media contact information and my entrepreneur resource links. So I mentioned at the top of the show, my new book, A New Black Wall Street, Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful E-Commerce Businesses. So if you're looking to build a successful, sustainable e-commerce business, go to anewblackwallstreet.com. Pick yourself up a copy, $14.95 for the print version, $9.95 for the digital version. Now, if you need additional assistance building your successful, sustainable e-commerce business, my new flagship course, Brand Builder Academy Elite, is available right now with the coupon code. So you can go to bbaelite.com, use the coupon code BBAElite100, takes $100 off the price. It's only $97. This is a 14-week all-inclusive program taking you from point A to point Z and teaching you how to build a product brand, be it a physical product or digital product brand. bbaelite.com, BBAElite100 is the code. Now, also, my new, revised, rebooted Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Academy is back open. So if you're looking for all of my courses and all of my trainings, go to bebacademy.com. You have a 5-day free trial, bebacademy.com. All of my online courses and all of my trainings are behind that paywall. Once again, you get 5 days free. Check it out, and you can have access to everything behind the academy. Also, I want to talk about my 2 platforms I created to help circulate dollars in the Black community. First one is besmartbyblack.com. So if you're a Black product producer and you're looking to sell your product to Black consumers worldwide, upload your product information for free. And you can connect with Black consumers that want to buy from Black product producers worldwide. besmartbyblack.com. Now, I didn't forget about you freelancers. So if you do anything on Fiverr.com or freelancer.com, you can go to hireblackfreelancers.com, HIRE, blackfreelancers.com. Upload your information. Once again, it is free. And you can connect with Black consumers and Black businesses that want to hire Black freelancers. Now, also, I mentioned BEB Academy. Also, my course, my pod course, which is an audio learning course. I partnered with Himalaya Learning. So if you go to himalaya.com/blueprint and use the coupon code Blueprint, you'll get 14 days free trial. So my pod course is titled The Blueprint, Pinpoint and Monetize Your Genius. Get a 14-day free trial, himalaya.com/blueprint, and use the coupon code Blueprint, and you can get a 14-day free trial access to that platform. They have a lot more producers on there, Seth Godin, Tim Ferriss, and a ton of other producers. Now, so I gave you all of that information. I know it's a lot. So you can go to bebconnect.com. That's bebconnect.com. That has all my resource links I just gave you. Now, for my social media contact information, if you anything long, hit me at my email, jjones@blackentrepreneurblueprint.com. Facebook, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Twitter, jjones001. Instagram, jjones for real, JAYJONES, the number 4, REAL. YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, family. I have additional content that comes out on YouTube that is not on the show. Yes, the show is on YouTube, but this is additional content. Go to YouTube, type in Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, and hit the subscribe button. LinkedIn, hit me up on LinkedIn, J Jones, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. And if anybody is on Clubhouse right now, great new app. I know you got to get invited to Clubhouse, but check me out. Follow me on Clubhouse, J Jones, JAYJONES at I am J Jones. J Jones at I am J Jones on Clubhouse. Once again, all of this contact information can be found at bebconnect.com. That's bebconnect.com. Now, let me give you a couple short takeaways from the interview with my man, Cornell McBride Jr. One of the things that I really liked at the beginning of the interview, he talked about building his distribution network. And so when you build a business, if you can control the vertical, meaning the process, the manufacturing, distribution, and production, or manufacturing, production, and distribution of the product, now what you're doing, you're creating economies of scale. You're not at anybody else's mercy to have your product distributed. So it's just like the record industry, right? Now we have all of these black stars, African-American stars, and obviously it's changed now with streaming. But before, you had to get a distribution deal to get your record out there. And so we never controlled the distribution. So if you're able to control distribution, what you're doing right now is you're creating economies of scale and you're creating leverage because you're not beholden to somebody else to distribute your products. So I thought that was very important. Also, at the top of the show, he mentioned that his dad owned several beauty supply companies and a package store. So you always want to be diversified. And what happened was, so after he sold out of M&M, the first company that created Stay Soft Fro, He had money, but he parlayed that money into the beauty store space and the packaged goods space. Sold that business and then parlayed that into design essentials, which is the research labs, the McBride Research Labs. So it's always about leveling up, parlaying, taking what you do. If you cashing out, parlay, go up another step and keep stepping up like that. He also talked about a time where they lost $1 million in product. And so it's not just us small guys out here that lose money. Anybody in any company can lose money. So I used to tell my wife, I'm like, look, if you got $1 billion companies going out of business, why can't Jay Jones, right? Not that that's a good thing and that's not a goal, but you just have to recognize and understand the playing field. You're going to go through some bumps in the road and you may not be successful on your first try out there, but keep plugging away. And what I always say is don't make the same mistake twice, because that's where you really get jammed up. But those are some of the takeaways from the show. Brother Cornell McBride Jr. gave us a master class. He took us to a different level of entrepreneurship. Being a second generation entrepreneur, he's seen a lot and he obviously has learned a lot and he knows a lot. So please, if you're in that space, support this brother and his company, Design Essentials. And that's what we always do here at the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Podcast and the BEB family. Now, speaking of the BEB family, once again, guys, I say this each and every week, but it's the truth. We get more and more downloads, and that's because of you, the BEB family. Please continue to spread the word about the podcast and the blog, because it's more than that. As I always say, family, it's a movement. We're trying to build an economic power base in the Black community. All right. There's no revolution without economics. There's no revolution without economics. We have to start building and supporting Black-owned businesses, not just, by chance. Make it a habit. We have to be consistent with it, and we have to be diligent in making choices of where we spend our dollars. Once again, all these other ethnicities, they count on you to spend all your money with them. And once again, we're the only ethnicity that doesn't make a concerted effort to spend with our own. And that's why, like I said, I did a podcast. Here's what they think about you. That's why everybody's laughing at us and doesn't take us seriously, because they can call you all kind of names. They can put up type of derogatory products, like Gucci, and we're still going to spend our money there. It's almost like going to the cash register. You're in the store going to the cash register. You buying something. You're giving somebody the money. They spit in your face and slap you and take your money. And you say, thank you very much. I'll be back next week. That's what it's all about. So we have to start being intentional, and we have to start being able to weaponize our dollars. Putting our dollars where they make the most sense, taking those dollars away when it doesn't make sense to spend with companies that don't even support you or care about you. Once again, guys, no revolution without economics. I'll see you same time next week. Love you guys. Peace.